A lot of people have been asking me about my thoughts on this Philadelphia masjid fight and the surrounding conversation, which is going on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, with a lot of videos being made, a lot of content. Um, and I've seen quite a few of those, even though I'm removed uh, from a lot of that stuff, and it doesn't seem as personal to me. Um, Everything's in a sociological context and historical context. And a lot of people are stereotyping, making generalizations about Philadelphia Muslims, about Salafis, about Black American Muslims, etc. People are largely a product of their upbringings and their environments. Just as an example, while I'm making this video, I'm looking at what's probably a father or older male relative with children in his vehicle just throwing trash out of the car here at Forest Park in St. Louis. That's learned behavior. He's a litter bug, and he's probably an all around piece of shit. And those kids, without interaction and education from more responsible adults, will probably pattern those same behaviors. So, before talking about Philadelphia, I want to just juxtapose it with what's going on in Texas. The Dallas Metro is what I've referred to as the capital of Islam Inc., or as what the young brother Abdul Malik Merchant said, only imams, like only fans, only imams. The money, the business of Islam in America, which is largely dominated by South Asians, to a lesser extent Arabs, who are middle class to affluent in the suburbs. And they have their unique issues and problems as well. Epic, East Plano Islamic Center, attempted to, or is attempting, and it looks like they'll be successful after litigation, to set up a Muslim country club, suburban or actually ex-urban private community, gated community. And this is something very much in line with their influence from mega churches, their influence from notions of class from South Asia, and wanting to have limited interaction with the general society, and wanting their children to have limited interactions with the general society. I look at that dispassionately because I would never want to live in such a community. I don't think such communities are healthy. Um, and it's really not a win for anyone but affluent South Asian Muslims. Um, and they can take care of themselves as they did. They have money, they pay for lawyers, they went to court, and it looks like they're victorious. Those Muslims don't know anything about Germantown, Philly, or um, working class Muslim communities, or Black American Muslim communities, or the Salafi movement, etc. You could mention the names of all the popular imams, and the congregants to their masjid wouldn't know the names of any of them or care. As one of the reasons it's absurd and ludicrous to speak of the American Muslim community as this unified entity that can be united politically and socially. It's too ethnically, racially diverse, too economically diverse, too geographically dispersed. Someone like a Mehdi Hassan or Wajid Ali has absolutely no clue whatsoever what is going on in places like Germantown, Philadelphia, and the smaller equivalents in other cities. They don't know, they don't care. Um, Islam in America is increasingly a kind of an ethnic, racialized identity, oftentimes detached from religious observance. Whereas convert Muslim communities and the second in generations, etc., are not racialized identities in the Sunni Muslim context. They're not ethnic identities, they are communities bonded over observance. Once religious observance leaves the scene, they leave the scene. So, how do I respond to what's going on in Philadelphia? You have to look at this from a perspective like this. It's not the fault of the Salafi Da'wah, because there are Muslims that are not Salafi that have engaged in violence and criminality. It's not the fault of Black American Muslims, because if you look at the masjid from the community of Imam Muhammad Muhammad and other Black American Muslim masjid, you don't see such criminality and violence, even though it has happened at non-Salafi masjids and non-Salafi communities as well. And anyone who's saying that only Salafi communities or only Salafi masajid is being misleading. But because the Salafi Dawah is the most popular, and because Philadelphia is where Islam has caught fire more than any other place, and where Dawah has been more successful than any other place, then whatever issues are happening are magnified and more intense in Philadelphia. But there's no such thing as a Philadelphia Muslim, as some say. There's Muslims in Philadelphia, but many of the problems people have identified in Philadelphia with criminality, with violence, with the negative impacts of some aspects of religious fundamentalism, you know, the serial marriage, the problems of people's kids, the numerous dysfunctions in that community, are a negative byproduct of the success of the Dawah in Philadelphia, which also has created many stable and good Muslim households and serious Muslims who are thriving and their families are thriving. So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you talk about Philadelphia or any place else. And again, what's going on in Philadelphia on a large level is going on smaller levels in all cities within the Muslim community. Is just Philadelphia has the biggest Muslim community within this demographic. The reality is this. I personally, and I think most of you, don't like hanging out places where the majority of the people are have been to prison, convicted of felonies, or have a history of violence, or who lack the impulse control, lack the problem-solving skills, lack the intelligence, lack the maturity, and were never taught how to deal with problems non-violently or in a non-violent and non-aggressive manner. Not that I haven't been involved with fights. I used to get a lot of fights when I was younger, but it's something you learn to mature out of. Not that I'm perfect. I still got a temper, but it's moderated with age. But if you don't seek help, and whether you're using the tools of religion or not, if you don't seek some way to better yourselves, and you're in such an environment, you're just in an environment with a bunch of convicts and with a bunch of violent men. Doesn't matter if they're praying, doesn't matter if they're eating, doesn't matter if they're playing ball together. If these are their learned behaviors that they more than likely learned growing up and learned from their community and family, and they have not been taught, and the masjid is not being a vehicle for education, not to regurgitate the culture of the Arabian Peninsula, which works very well for people from the Arabian Peninsula, but have not been educated by locals who understand the culture, who understand the sociology, who understand the dynamics of the upbringing of the communities, and said, we have to modify these behaviors and we're going to help you evolve. If that has not happened, it's just their existing behaviors. You throw in some Arabic, you throw in some religious fundamentalism, and say, okay, this is the magic pill. We don't need to discuss your chemical addictions, your history of violence, you're not knowing what a stable family looks like. You're not knowing what building credit looks like. You're not knowing what becoming middle class looks like. but we're going to plop you down with a bunch of people from your same background, without education, without therapy, without whatever is needed, and then we're going to expect you to reform your behaviors. Is unrealistic. Doesn't matter if they're Salafi, Sufi, or what their race is. And people are picking on black American Muslims. Well, here in St. Louis, it's the Palestinians selling liquor and pork, and a lot of times drugs and everything else in the black community. In the UK, it's not black Muslims involved in these quote-unquote grooming gangs. It's South Asian Muslims. In the suburbs of Paris, North African Muslims. Sweden has a serious Muslim crime problem. So there's nothing unique with black American Muslims that, oh, they face criminal culture, but nobody else does. That's inaccurate. This is a particular problem in some segments of the American Muslim community and the majority of black American masjids, but they have no monopoly, because all of these things are based on shortcomings that are universal, that humans tend to have no matter what their backgrounds may be. And this is not unique to the Salafi Dawah. If the Salafi Dawah created criminals, then such behavior would be occurring at predominantly Arab and South Asian Salafi masjids in the United States and in the West. It would be happening in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does not have a serious crime problem. Saudi Arabia does not have imams instructing people to punch someone and then getting punched after Salah. Saudi Arabia does not have these issues. And Saudi Arabia is also moderating on many things thanks to the leadership of Crown Prince Mohammed ibn Salman. Saudi Arabia is evolving into something even better, where religion is at the core of the identity, but also national progress and economic gains and social and cultural gains, and the disposing of a religious fundamentalism that can thwart the growth of both the individual and the society. This is what the leadership of MBS is, and this is the critique that people have of him. I happen to be a fan of him. And I think he will ultimately change the curriculum of Islamic University of Medina so that these young imams and da'is that come from Medina will be better equipped to handle these situations. So that's basically what I have to say. I didn't want to write an article on this or put it in my newsletter because I was talking about combat sports this week and people kept asking me. And I'll just put it like this. You voluntarily put yourself in these situations because you can easily go to the masjid in the suburbs, cushy carpet. They may not have cultural competence. You may not socialize with that much, but you can go there and make salah. You can go to Jummah. You can go to your Ramadan activities. You go to Eid. I lived in Texas 4 years in the Dallas area. I probably learned the name of one or two people. I went at the masjid to make buddies and socialize. When I go to masjids in St. Louis now, I'm in and out. I have my Muslim friends, the circle is small. I'm not at the masjid to socialize. If you're just looking to socialize, you need people from your own background. But that masjid is full of people with lower rates of education, simple fundamentalism, an aura of criminality, a lot of ankle monitors, a lot of people who are really not doing anything with their lives, who are negative actors in their own families and communities. Ask yourself this question. Would you hang out at a barbershop with people like this? Would you hang out at a restaurant with people like this? Would you hang out in a park with people like this? No. These are not desirable people to hang out around if they're continuing these behaviors. So why expose yourself to this? This issue is not really personal to me because it's been years since I would even consider attending a masjid like that or hanging out in a group like that, because it can lead to absolutely nothing positive in your life, only negativity in your life. So if you're seeking to grow and be a better person and have a better family and have a better future, I would just remove myself from these masjids. It's not worth arguing about on Facebook all day. They're going to be what they're going to be. And you're going to be that if you put yourself in those circles. So it's best to remove yourself.